Did you ever dream that you were going to be doing this when you were a young man?
No, ma'am. I always said I never would be a farmer.
Well, how come you didn't want to be a farmer?
Because I liked the weekly paychecks when I was a teenager.
Yeah, me too. I get that.
I wanted to work, you know, for somebody else, and draw my weekly check and go home and have my weekends off.
Yeah. So what happened? You fell in love.
Well, yes. My dad was a very small farmer back in the 50s and 60s, and I was in the military in 58 to 61, and in 1960 I met my wife of today. After, well, in March it'll be 60 years, and I was home on leave and met her up in Kansas City, where she was up there working. And we got to dating, and on a kind of a blind date type thing. And we went together about 3 weeks. We wrote together. I was transferred to Anchorage, Alaska. We wrote together every day. Wrote a letter every day. For a year, I come back to where we live now, Salisbury, Missouri, which was her hometown. And after we got married, I had to go back for 6 more months before I was discharged. And when I got discharged, I didn't figure I would ever have an opportunity to farm, because my dad was just too small for 2 families. And my new wife, her father had got injured kind of in an accident, and he was wanting somebody to help with his operation, which at the time was not very big, but it was big enough, we thought, for 2 families. So we moved to Salisbury when I got discharged. That was 1961. We've been here ever since, and really enjoy the area.
You're supposed to go to Niagara Falls?
For our honeymoon.
Oh. Well, how many years later then was it before you got to go to Niagara Falls?
50, over 50. I think that was 2 years ago, and it was 50-some years. 50, let's see, about 55 or 56 years.
Well, that's better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So what are you getting ready to do?
We have about close to 200 bushel of grain in the combine. We will have to transfer it over to the semi-truck, and then it'll either be taken to the town, to the elevator, or it will be taken up to our bins.
So what do they do with this grain at the elevator then?
Most of the time it'll be shipped to the Gulf. The wheat we raise is not human consumption. Most of it probably will go to feed.
So what's that beeping tell you?
That it is running.
Okay.
We are putting grain in the truck. You don't want to do that when you're going across the field. My boss might get mad.
Okay, so how does this work?
Okay. I'll try to explain to you.
Okay.
First of all, this is a John Deere 9500. It's a 1996 makes it about 23 years old. 23 years old. And no more than we farm. This is about all we can afford. We can't afford to do it way too high.
So what did you start out using as a combine? What was the first combine that you had?
It was a Minneapolis Moline with a 6-foot cut, and you pulled it with a Minneapolis Moline tractor. That was 1961. Even the one that's 23 years old, it's got 25-foot head, and in 61 we started with 6-foot cut instead of a 25-foot cut.
So how many acres were you cutting back then?
Well, we'd cut about anywhere from about 10 acres maybe in a good afternoon, or 8 to 10 acres.
And how many do you cut in an afternoon now?
Well, we started here the day before yesterday. So far we have cut this afternoon and the other afternoon we've cut 82 acres. So we've cut about 40 acres in the afternoon.
So do you like the technology, or has it made it better? Is it harder?
It's made it a lot better. I'll take the cab and the air conditioners over the tractor sitting out in the dust any day of the week. That's what made old people. Was sitting out in that dust. Used to get infection, dust infection around your nostrils, and we'd wear a bandana around our nose and our mouth. That was the only type of respirator that we had. Now we sit in a, even though it's 23 years old, we sit in a very comfortable cab and pretty clean. I've never had a new combine. I've been farming since 61, never had a new combine. We've had several new tractors, but we've never had a new combine.
Well, at $500,000, it's hard to get around that, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
I
I think John Deere just came out with a new one, and their people is predicting it'll be $1 million.
Did you ever drive anything other than John Deere equipment?
Yes, for a few years, not very long. We've been with John Deere for, good strong 55 years. And mainly because we had a very prosperous local dealer. Now, our individual dealer is gone, and about 2 years ago, our local dealer got bought out by a dealership, and now they have 26 stores. And I guess that's okay. We just have to live with what goes on, like everybody else has to.
So Harold, how did the boys help you when they were young?
Well, when the boys was in school, most of them, we had 3 boys. We lost one in an accident when he was 12 years old. 13 years old, actually, I guess. And so we had wound up with the 2. The oldest boy farmed with us for a few years. And then he went to the rural small town after he got married, worked for a while, then he came back for a while. And Mark, he's been with me since, I don't know, probably about 81, 82 when he came back to the farm. And him and I has been running a roughly about an 800-acre farm. And it's a great life. Always good to help. They always got to share, even when they was in school. they got old enough to drive, I always tried to see if, tried to work it out where on Saturday night that I could let them off a little early because I knew they wanted to go to town.
Well, I can tell you that's the biggest thing that I didn't understand when Mark and I got married, because he picked me up every night at 7 o'clock on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then when we got married, he was out till 9 o'clock, and I was like, what happened? But I got used to it.
Well, it's not a 9 to 5 job. Just like today, we're rushing just a little bit because they're talking of some heavy rain possibly moving in tonight. So we've got about 30 acres left when I get down here. And we would like to get done by dark, but if everything goes smooth, we don't have no breakdowns, we might make it. But the least little glitch, something going wrong, we won't get done.
So what are some things that could go wrong?
When you're running a 23-year-old combine, 1 minute it's running, the next minute you might be down for 3 days. This combine is the second owner combine. We bought it used about 7 years ago, I guess, something like that. It's been a pretty good machine, but we try to keep it up in very dependable condition if we can. Because you don't want to work on it in the field when it's 95 degrees outside.
What do you do to maintain it in the winter time? When you guys are done, what do you do?
Usually every fall it gets washed when we get done, and we will usually go over it a week or so, kind of check everything out and service the machine with the filters and all and stuff like that. But this year we was kind of in a hurry, so about all we done was change the oil and the filters and filled it up with diesel fuel and got on it and went to work. If I was cutting soybeans, it would be, got a switch over here, I can control the height. It maintains height itself automatically. And this head is what they call a contour master. Also goes up and down on the ends, about 1.5 foot each way. And all that's done automatically. But when you're cutting wheat, we lock it out.
So, tell me about Kirk taking it in and testing it.
He took in a sample so we could tell if it was dry enough to take to town. It's been too wet, so that's why we was putting it in the bin. We'll put it in a grain bin that'll hold about 10,000 bushel, and then it'll be dry. But this, they say there's carrying about 1/2 point of moisture. So our bin's getting about full, so we're gonna probably take a couple loads to MFA elevator at Salisbury so we can keep it running. I think the bin might hold another trailer load or two, and a trailer load's about 1,000 bushel. I got a bearing over here going out. It's green, that's what that is. I'm trying to get it, nurse it along till I get done.
So that's what that squeak is?
Yes. Every once in a while I'll get out there and I'll oil it. I put some oil on it so it shut up. I don't like to listen to it. If you run one of these enough years, you know what everything sounds like. And you pick up on the sound that something is wrong. And if it just changes sounds, you know that you have plugged it up somewhere, or something is broke. We have a monitor up here, and all those lights will come on when something goes wrong, and it'll tell me which place has a problem. Like the hydraulic oil temperature is too hot, or the engine air filter is stuffed up. Hang on now.
So no lights is a good thing.
Right, right. Yes.
How do you feel about another generation joining you?
That'd be just fine if we could afford, you know, to bring somebody else in, because you have to be very diversified when you're small like us. You gotta have some livestock.
Did you enjoy working with livestock?
Oh yeah, yeah, I like the cows. We had cows, stock cows, for years. But after you get in your 70s, you're just not too excited about getting out there in the mud.
I don't know.
Zero weather.
I don't know that you're too excited about it in your 50s. So what advice would you give a younger farmer getting started?
Well, it's not easy. It's really not. I got started with help from my father-in-law. By help, I mean that he had a decent line of machinery for the day and age. So I used his for a few years till I could afford my own.
What was the very first thing you bought?
I bought a tractor for $100. It was a little 2-bottom tractor. It wouldn't run at the sale. It was just sitting there, and they sold it. And snowing like the dickens. I give $100 for it. And I went home and got a can of gas. I've always been kind of mechanical inclined. And got a can of gas and a battery, went back, stuck it in there, my father-in-law and I did. She fired right up, and I drove her home in a snowstorm. And I used that tractor for about 3 years. Then I bought a bigger tractor.
You can't, a bolt cost $100 now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it was about a 38 or 39 little Nancy Harris.
I bet you were real proud of it though, weren't you?
I was, especially when it started. This truck is what you're looking at is a 98 Peterbilt. Out of the state of Oklahoma. And we've had it since '09, so we've had it 11 years.
So now who will be taking that Who'll take that load to town?
Kirk will, oldest boy. Mark's over here playing beans.
So has Catherine helped quite a bit with the farming over the years?
She has. She is, after we had our families, she worked at Kansas City when we got married. And she's never worked away from home after we started the family, which really was back then was quite a blessing. And she's always had the meals ready, always helped transport us from point A to point B anytime we needed it. She's just a super person.
She is.
Yes.
I will not argue that. So how do you think the future looks for farming?
Well, my opinion is it's going to just keep getting bigger. That's what it's done the last 60 years we've been doing it. And I don't know, I really just don't know if it's going to turn into corporate farms or just, it's possible that it could go into corporate farms just like the industry for pork and cattle has done. There used to be, every farm had a few hogs and they fattened out a few cattle to sell. Now you don't have that. It's all big corporations. And if farming gets to that point, then it'd be kind of a sad time. I don't think I'll see it. But there's still a lot of young, small farms around.
Now what causes that to be flattened out like that?
Wind. Remember that day we had that east wind?
Yep.
And you'll notice it's laying my way. I'm going underneath it.
Okay.
So I can pick it up.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to do. But the wheat is good and dry. Right now we're running about 4.4 miles per hour. And just kind of scooting right along.
Is this your favorite thing to do?
Well, yes. I love to ride the combine. I don't like a poor crop. I like to harvest a big crop, a good crop. Sometimes we don't. This is just kind of a medium-sized crop of wheat this year because it was so wet in the fall and wet in the winter. I'm really kind of surprised we've got what we have. But we have spent quite a bit of money to get it here. But that's the way it goes.